I remember my ROTC leadership lecture. We had a captain come in from Korea. He said the average life expectancy of a second lieutenant in combat is 15 to 20 seconds. I dropped out of ROTC and my draft board said, greetings. I wasn't going into the Army, so I volunteered for the Air Force. But before I left, I asked Barbara if she would marry me. I couldn't risk losing her. Here I am, 19-year-old kid asking 16, 17-year-old, will you marry me? She said, yeah. And that was the beginning of the Hendersons. I did well in college, but I wasn't a stellar student, not in my first 4 years. I was surviving in my first 4 years. But after I got out, Barb and I then moved to Detroit, and that's when life really unfolded for me. My first job was a social caseworker, and from there I was a social economist with the Housing Commission, which really was a community organizer in low-income housing neighborhoods. And then from there I moved to the Detroit Urban League, where my civil rights activities exploded. I became director of community services of the Detroit Urban League, and that meant working with low-income Hispanic and Black communities, mostly Blacks, and helping them with whatever they needed. And it was that experience where I got a chance to work in the Hispanic communities with Father Clement Kearns, the Catholic Church, and he introduced me to Cesar Chavez. And Cesar Chavez talked about organizing the Mexican workers in California and the far west. And I learned about labor tactics. That was a place where I met Martin Luther King Jr. as director of community service and helping in other ways. Here was this young man, not much older than myself, a national leader. Wow. And shortly thereafter, I met Malcolm X, same situation. They both had the kind of charisma that I can't really describe. I can try, but it's inadequate. You know, charisma is when these individuals walk into the room, they suck the oxygen out. And figuratively, you know that you're in the presence of someone who indeed is destined to be something great. You have that feeling about them. Martin was pleased because I was working for the Urban League, and the Urban League and the NAACP were really allies. Malcolm with Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing something else. But both of those organizations, all of those other organizations, were fighting for freedom of Black people in different ways. My conversation with Malcolm stayed with me forever. After he tried to convince me, he says, I can't have an inadequate revolution without Black intellectuals. I need the poets, the playwrights, and I need the teachers. I need those of you supporting me, encouraging the young kids. And I knew what he was saying, but I said, Brother Malcolm, I can't do that. He said, can't? I said, okay, I won't do that. He said, then promise me, Brother Henderson, if you won't help me, that you promise you'll never hurt me. And I made that promise, and I kept that promise. But in my own way, I then said to him, well, you promised not to hurt me, Malk? And he laughed, and we laughed. That friendship was a wonderful friendship. But back to Martin. I guess it was understanding that it was a movement that I somehow, a voice inside said to me, my mother's voice, you must be involved in this. You must help other people like you. The lesson, one of the foremost lessons that I learned from Martin was this. You know, the strategy meetings would be in someone's house. That means that you had maybe 3, 4, sometimes 5 generations of Black people in one household. Martin would come to those meetings if it was a meeting of individuals who were helping with money and organizing, and he would always be late. Maybe Baptist ministers are late because they can be, but in any case, he would be late. And I remember once pulling him aside, I said, Martin, you know we don't have much time. Why do you come in? You play with the kids, you tickle them, you ask their names, and why do you do that? And he looked at me almost in shock, though I should have known why he did that. And then he patiently said, George, I play with the little ones and talk with them and find out what their names are because it's for them and not for us. And then I knew. From that moment on, what I did was not for George Henderson. It wasn't for awards and honors and anything else. It was for the little ones and the next generations and after that. I had a purpose. I had a goal. I had a strategy. I was ready.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.